before the break, I explained how template works. It is the same template, use it again and again. Obviously, you see the same page, right? And I explained it how this part works, right? Die and game part works. And game, it is the same. I guess I explained it before. That I have set number of dice that is doing validation, and when it is not, I explain this. Regarding controller part. Controller part is surprisingly not complicated because it's by default in this case just one function that is processing data which is received. And this function is reused to show in front page. Technically, we could create two pages. One, it is something coming by default, and second is response to what you sent. Yes, definitely it is valid option. In this case, I just wanted to show default parameters. This is why. So most of my examples do contain something just for sake of this explaining some theory. That is not necessarily critically important to have. In this case, we could address it by creating just two addresses, 2 pages. But I wanted to show how to define default value. So when it is going to default page, / means immediately localhost, nothing. When request comes to that address, 3 is not included, or any number is not included. There is no parameter with the name count, right? Just because there is no parameter with the name count, it is using 3 by default. So it is creating new game with number 3 of dice. And it's calling roll, and it is showing model and view. You can return model and view instead of string. If you return string, you need to add the model to model class to the model object, as we did before, right? What you can return model and view, in this case, you can put all of them together like that and return it, so we'll see. When you click submit button, or roll again, right, submit button, it will be some number. So it will create new game object with that number, and we see a result using that number. So this is how it works. Next. I want to switch branch to the branch that says using hidden inputs. But before doing that, I want to roll back my changes. Otherwise, I cannot switch branch. It will complain. You'd have uncommitted changes. I'm switching to hidden input branch. Check out. This branch exists for entire purpose to explain what is hidden input. Remember example for Android program. Before I click roll, first time, I see empty screen. So somehow I need to implement this logic. Again, I could do it the simplest possible way by creating 2 different pages. When program starts, it just shows empty screen, and then roll button, submit, and next time, not empty screen, but screen but with no dice. When you click submit, it submits to some address, and after this it shows. Right? So we can do it, it's actually simpler. I created an example that shows hidden inputs, and we will reuse hidden inputs again and again. So it's a useful concept to learn. How it is used? Remember that my game object contains isRolled in it. So I use thif. Okay? Thif for the tag means show this content of the tag only when this is true. So it will roll the loop, and it will insert images only if game is rolled true. Right? So this is kind of logical, right? So why did I put it? To explain how if works. th if. Th if will include given tag only when condition is true. When condition is false, it will not include. It's especially handy if you need to display some kind of frame with messages in it, like error messages. And you don't want this kind of title with frame if you don't have messages. So in this case, you use if is arrows or something like that, and you use it to hide everything. Some block, like here. Is roll it, right? Now, how it is used internally in it. So I stop it, and I run it again. So obviously, by default, game is roll it, probably false, right? Before you click roll that button. But you need to have some logic on the server side for it. So first, let's run it and see how it does it. Again, the entire purpose of it to explain logic of hidden inputs. So now, if I go to dice localhost 8080, it is not displaying dice, and total is 0. Before you roll it, it is 0. Then I change it to, and by default, no parameters here, right? But remember about default parameters that I just explained. In my controller, in this case, I have 3 default parameters and is roll it false. And just because I have is roll it false, when I create game, I roll it only when is roll it true, right? Otherwise, I keep it as it is, without rolling. Just because when is roll it false by default, I'm not rolling. I roll it only when it is true. But when I click change it to something and send it, you see number of dice is 4, because I selected 4, and is roll it true. Now, because is roll it true, default is false, but if you provide something, it will be what you provide. I provided true. It is rolling, and now I see this on the screen. And is roll it inside of the game object, this one will be true, because I roll it. How? Okay, this looks logical, right? But where this is coming from, I don't have it on the screen. I don't have it as input. I know where this is coming from. Number of dice is equal to 4. It is my this. I just rename it variable. Rename it input. This is where it's coming from. But where this is coming from, this is hidden. This is concept of hidden input. It's hidden. It's not on the screen. But if I do Control-Shift inspect I, because Control-Shift, not sorry. Okay, I can do it from here. And I click sources, and I click here it is. It is the same as view source. And I scroll, I will see is roll it true in the code of the page. But it is hidden here, but it is not hidden, but it is in the source. It's marked hidden. This is why we don't see it on the screen. If you remove this one, it will try to display it as a text and keyword true inside. Text box with the with word true in it. Because default type of the input, it is text box input. You don't have to open that if you can just do view page source. And in the view page source, I see hidden input true. So this is here. And it stays always true. Okay? Name is roll, it's true. So each time when you click submit, this hidden input will submit exactly the same thing. So the value is not dynamic. But in the next example, I will show how to insert this number. You insert it the same way as here, with text. No, with text. You insert it's not with text. You insert with curly braces like that. Here, it's no big deal. Well, using the same manipulation. It will be in quiz example. Questions? So this part exists for just for sake of showing how hidden input works. Hidden inputs will be in the following example, call it math quiz. It is the quiz, multiplication quiz. It is the one I want you to add automatic testing to it, just to the model class. It is a reasonable example, a reasonable exercise because it's not too long. It is even shorter than this because this have a lot. But you need to modify it. You need to make it, to change it to make it reproducible. This branch does have tests, but you see it is still random numbers. So it will run, but if it fails, you don't know why. Because next time when you run it may be fine, because it's random. But next branch, which is master, where I'm going now, it's more advanced. First, let's look at the tests. For the test, remember that my random number generator can be just taken from outside. But if I assign it from outside, I have option to set seed to it. What is the meaning of set seed? And when you set seed to random number generation, it will provide sequence of kind of randomized numbers, but it will be exactly the same sequence, starting with the same value each time. It means your program will run exactly the same way. It will have imitation of the same random numbers, but it will be in the same order. So kind of random, but it's not. It will be sequence of some random numbers, and it will be the same sequence for the same seed. So if you want to check it with another sequence, or kind of another combination, you change it to another number, and you will get another sequence. So I have random number generator, and when I set seed, but you see before all is set up running before all tests, but also I have before each. This is before each test. So this is essentially run it once, but this is run it as many, depending on as many tests you have. If it is just test, it is once. If you have parameterized the test, for this case, this part will be run it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times for each repetition. The same for repeated test. This will be running for each repetition, but this is only once for all list of functions. Right? Okay, let's try to do this as an example. Okay, first let's run all of them to make sure that it's working. I'm running all. You see, it's working, right? Then let's look at the numbers output, right? What this? I have 5, 0, 4, 4, 4, 7, right? 5, 0, 4, 4, 4, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is coming from here, so it's not really informative. This one. So this is kind of based on fake random number. So when I run it again, five, 0, 4, 4, 4, 7, the same numbers, right? But so it is using the same value. But if I change 45 to 46, for example, I run it again. Five zero, but this is 50 is kind of assign it 50. It's not. This is why it's not. It is the same because I signed it 5 and I printed 5. This is why. And 0 is the same. I signed it 0 and printed 0 probably. But this, yes, printed 0. What is this? 6447. This is already different, right? If I rerun it, it's still 4647. So it is the same sequence. But if I put 7, remember it is 46447. Now it is different. Three, 6, 4, 7, different, right? Run it again for the same seed. 3, 6, 4, 7. So tests are reproducible for the same seed. If you want to run different sequence, you just change this number. So this is a logic how to deal with this situation. Next, so this was changed. Next thing that was changed is that we have just a catching error option, catching exception. This is the same as before, but I have exception page. It is kind of default error page. No, default crash page. Exception default crash page. So it is handle error. I said exception just generic, but you can specify exception and we have several different methods. I'm creating view and model. I add exception object. I add request object to know what is current URL it displayed, and I set value exception. Set value for view and model. It is HTML template for that. Right? So when we run it, but not as a test, so I need to switch and provide bad input, it will show exception page. Dice roller. So I added stuff to the model that I want to display. And I run it. I'm going to default page. And I have 3. So let's roll it. I got 3. But now I want to change number of dice to something bad, like -1. And print it. So I have customized error page. I have message failed URL. This comes from request object. So if I go to my template for that exception, you will see that I'm displaying this failed URL. Okay, and this URL came from my game controller request object, get request URL, that was added to template, and this is the name of it. Then I added exception, and this error message is coming from my exception that is thrown from my dice class. Illegal number of dice -1. Where it's coming from? It is from not the dice class, it is game class. Illegal number of dice -1. And when something is crashing, you will get some staircase, maybe, not always, but sometimes you do. It will be inside of exception. It's called exception trace. by reading this, you may figure out where the issue is carefully. Usually there is a clue. In this case, this is the most useful, right? When you do it in production, definitely nobody cares about it, so you remove the stuff. You just display something generic, internal server error. Okay? But this is for your debugging. So you can use it in your code to debug, so it's very handy to you. It is handy if you have one controller. You may have several controls. In this way, probably it's better to catch exception elsewhere by creating some extra code for it. Okay, because maybe you will have you need to use separation of concerns if you deal with dice, but in the same program you deal with cards. I don't know why, but could be. Maybe it should be different controllers, right? It's separation of concerns, right? Logic. Two different problems, two different controllers. Or you have some registration form for dice rolling. So definitely you will have a controller to register user and controller to roll dice. But you may have exception in the case, so you have some default catch of the exception, like error. In this case, issue happens before somebody is messing with it. And when somebody is messing with it, maybe I should be nice to them. We can just display something generic, right? And if we just mistype input, we need to be nice, because mistyping is not messing with it. Right? This is definitely kind of attempt to be bad. Okay. So what this program is missing? Validation, right? Validation of this. But in this case, it's not user input technically, but it still needs to be validated. We will talk about validation in future lessons. Definitely, you can get this number and compare it in your controller. Okay, because it is throwing exception when you try to call constructor with it. So you can compare it here in the controller and make sure that it's not negative or something like that, more than 0. But you will still get exception if if it is not a number. Exception will be thrown at the time when system will try to convert it to number. For example, if you instead of -1, I put a. In this case, you see failed to convert, string required int, nested exception, input string a. You at least know what it is, right? So, if we put if, it will not solve the issue. Okay? It should be something better. One of the approaches is to take string and to do parsing inside and catch exception so that it won't crash. And this is what mass example is doing. It is taking everything as a string, it's doing parsing. Simplest reasonable approach. But it's not the best, because if you have complicated input, you'll have to write a lot of code this way. So let's leave it alone. This is it about it. There's nothing else about this example. And open mass example and see how it works. That is not complicated, so it can be explained quickly. It is mass quiz 1. Clone it. Before you open it in the window, make sure it's not rolling. Otherwise, click cancel. If it is running and you try to open it, it will say, do you want to kill it? Kill it. But if you say keep it, you cannot run your example, because you cannot have two programs running on the same port. So I set this window, and it's opening mass example. So it has one model or domain class, call it problem. It contains 2 random numbers, and it contains answer because it's multiplication quiz. As you see, this is not reproducible. So you need to define random number generation variable, provided it's the parameter of constructor, the same as for dice example. So you need to rewrite this logic. in order to make it testable, in order to make it test reproducible. And then you have getters and setters. So you can use .a and .b to display, there's no setters, to display values. Since there is no setters, this class is immutable. Once you create the object, it doesn't change. There is also option to create object with 2 parameters, and it will calculate answer. Input page is shown by default. Input page is shown by default, and it is new random problem. So input answer is shown by default. So I start this up. It did start, and I go to 8080. Control-Shift-R to reload CSS. Now, what it is? 36, right? If I type 36, it will tell your answer is right. It will show me page with your answer is right. So when it will receive data at the check answer, you see I'm receiving strings. And after this, I'm parsing it. And if parsing throws exception, I'm catching it here and showing bad input page. If it is not throwing exception, I'm creating problem for the same numbers. Checking it if received numbers is the same as checking if user answer wait, is this user answer parsed the same as problem get answer, and if it is matching, I'm showing right answer page, otherwise I'm showing wrong answer page. Every page needs to show problem unless it is crash, and if it is crash, I'm showing numbers separately because I don't know why it's crashed. And I always show user answer on every page. So I have 4 pages. Input answer, right answer, wrong answer, bad input. So let's see how it works. Obviously, I'm getting this A and B from somewhere. Otherwise, how would I know it's right or wrong? So, view page source contains 2 hidden inputs, A and B. So, this is what I type, 36. This is 4 times 9, hidden inputs. So, server side will receive 4, 9, and 36. So, it will figure out if it's right or wrong. So, again, hidden input are used as something hidden in the form that we submit. And we do it hidden inputs to internal logic of the program. Hidden inputs are not typed by user, but they are used by the program for internal logic. So if I see 45, it will state wrong, right? It's supposed to be 36. It says this is problem. And because problem is included, this one, if it is parsed right, no matter if it's right answer or wrong answer. Back to the quiz. 64, it says you are right, it's right. You go back, I mistype it. It says this, but these two are submitted separately in the mistyped case, because when in my logic, when I parse these 3, it's all in this case, and this case. It's a number format exception. So I don't know due to watch. So I cannot create problem. Who knows? Maybe it's failed because A and B. It can happen. It can happen. Fail because of A and B. For example, instead of A, 5, I do whatever, blah, blah, blah. So in this case, it is failing because of that. This is my 3. Okay. Technically, it's not intended behavior, but it's logical, right? In this case, parsing is failing by that. Program is not crashing. Kind of reasonable, right? So again, if we use default way to submit data, it doesn't care if it is submitted through address, through link, or through form. Questions? So, exercise for today. Do it after class. Now we have 0 time left, like 9 minutes till the end of the lesson. Create tests for this problem. It's not very complicated, right? Tests. Make it reproducible. So random number generator should be kind of set from outside through parameter of constructor. So you need to change constructor. You need to have 2 constructors. You need to keep this constructor because your code is calling it. But for testing purpose, create constructor that is taking parameter random number generator as a parameter. And obviously, this constructor, it is just calling that constructor. Right? Right? And these 3 lines are going into constructor below that you're going to create, and they're calling random dot next int. Okay? And after this, generate tests and run them, type code and run them, make sure that you understand how JUnit testing is working. Please do it as exercise. It helps you to understand how to write tests. Questions? If no questions, I'm wrapping up. It's afternoon. So please do not postpone working in your assignment, because it's designed to be due on Friday, but since I made mistake in class plan, I decided that, okay, maybe you need another weekend for it. But try to do it as soon as you can, all right? So, see you. Bye.